Hi, I'm Emlyn, Swansea Ufo Network, and we're here today to talk to Phil Jones, whose father witnessed the UFO on the evening of the 19th of January 1983, on the night when many UFOs were seen across the South Wales area, and particularly around the Swansea Bay area. Little bit of background: Phil's dad, who's now sadly deceased, was a driving instructor who was leaving the house to go to work to pick up somebody just after 6 p.m. on that night. And I'll introduce you now to Phil, who'll take you through what was seen.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as I say, my father alighted the property. He was going on to a driving lesson. As he got down to his car here, he noticed his attention was drawn to the roofs of the two houses next door but one. From which he saw a large black craft. It was he described it as being about the size of a family saloon car, triangular in shape. It was blacker than the night sky, and then on the three corners of this craft was a small pole, and then at the bottom of that pole was a very bright, small but very bright white light. The vehicle, or the craft, came between the two houses here. It then descended below the height of the house at a walking pace. It crossed the road and then ascended back up on several phases. It came up on 2 or 3 phases and just about managed to miss the roof of the house opposite.
Which roof was it?
Number 15.
15. So
that's right, that one there next to the scaffolding.
The black roof.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. He said it was that close. He was waiting for the impact to occur. He really did think it was going to crash.
Was there any sound?
It made a sound. It was a very low chuk, 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 chuk type sound.
Chugging sound.
Like a chugging sound. It was going at what he described as a slow walking pace, and was so narrow, or indeed so low, it had no height to it as such. He said although it was intelligently controlled, and certainly it was under control, if there was any entity, anything in there, it would have had to have been laying prostrate, and it would have certainly probably not a human being. It was that thin.
So you say it was about, what size was it?
About the size of a family saloon car.
About the size of a family saloon car?
Yeah, a regular family car. So.
When you say it was a triangle shape, what was it, like a equilateral triangle? Or was it?
Yes, it was, yeah. As I said, several people were reported as having seen these aircraft in the night sky on that particular night in question, but this is the closest that I'm aware of.
Yeah, there's one I've heard that it is the lowest that I've heard of.
Yeah.
So you can imagine it coming over the roof there.
Sure.
So have a quick scan up again.
In this direction, as I say, it descended. It actually came down below the height of the roof. How long would it take? 5-6 seconds to cross the road at a walking pace.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, it then ascended again, just about cleared that roof, literally by an inch or two. And then my father, having run up here, between the gap in the two houses, he noticed it descending again and making its way down there.
Well, when it actually left, did it
Sure.
did it leave at velocity, or did it just disappear?
My father lost sight of it between these houses. It didn't speed up. The speed was constant. It was a constant, what he described as a slow to medium walking pace. And that's how it ascended over that roof. But he ran over here, saw between the two houses the gap there. He managed to watch it descend back down below the house level again and head off in that direction towards the Swansea Bay.
Right, okay.
And as I say, he said that as far as he was concerned, the speed was continually, it was the same speed.
I wonder if there was any sound coming from that thing.
Well, the only sound that he could hear was a very low, deep, and I'll do it for you, it was a sort of a chuk, 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 chuk sound.
Yeah. So where were you at the time? Were you
I would
living
have
there?
been in the house. I was living there. I was 18 at the time. I was actually inside the house together with my mum and brother.
Yeah.
As I say, my father was coming out to go on a driving lesson as a driving instructor. He was going to pick someone up. Of course, it's then he noticed this. As he
Was your dad sort of into this sort of stuff, or was he a skeptic?
He had a great deal of interest in the paranormal, in all its aspects, all its various aspects, whether it be ghosts or teleportation, time travel, whatever it might be. And of course, UFOs are one of those. But I wouldn't say he was overly interested until this event.
The only reason I say is because a lot of people think that they've seen a UFO when they've seen like a flare or something.
Yeah, for sure.
And some people it's what they want to see.
Indeed.
But this thing was really...
Oh, well, that's, as I said, until he died in 2012, we regularly discussed it. And I suppose periodically we'd sit down and think, well, what on earth could it have been? And to this day, we have no answer.
So when it happened, did he come back in the house to tell?
Oh gosh, yes, he was very excited about it. He came running in. Oh, he was in a bit of a flap. Oh God, you see what I've seen? It's nuts, it's mad. What have I just seen? And of course, but then he was a very private chap, and hence I had to wait until he passed away before I could report it to anyone. He wouldn't have wanted any of this, I can assure you.
Were there any other witnesses that come forward sort of said,
Well,
did you see what went on here?
No, not that I'm aware of. Nobody else in the street has come forward or mentioned anything. So as far as I'm aware, my father was the only witness to this particular incident. As I say, I know of 2 or 3 people who saw them much higher, at a far higher altitude on that night. I think there were police officers witnessed it. Lots of sort of respectable, reliable witnesses saw these craft.
Yeah. There was nothing like what your dad said.
No.
It seems that on that night, on that evening, there were many different objects in different areas in the same area. So it wasn't just that one area.
No. This is what I've since, having studied it since, have found to be the classic triangular craft. I know that Belgium had a lot of what they call a flap back in the 80s with these triangular craft were chased and pursued. I know that much.
But your father's sighting is unusual. In fact, it had a protuberance at each corner with a white light on the end of it.
That's right. To go through that again, each of the 3 corners, a tube so long, at the bottom of which was a small but very intensely bright white light, very intensely bright. And that's of course how he could take the shape. And of course between the 3 bright white lights, the triangle itself was a lot darker. Whatever it was made of, it was a lot darker than the sky.
Did it move in any irregular patterns, or have you... No?
No, as I said, it came in an absolute straight line over the roof. The only thing it did, the only deviation was in its altitude. Its altitude fluctuated from just above, literally an inch or 2 above roof level, down to below roof level. And of course then it reascended once it got to the other side of the road.
I forgot saying on my little introduction there, we're actually in Long Oaks Avenue in between the Uplands and Sketty in Swansea. And that way is south, that way is north. So
that's right. It was heading in a north to south. It was heading in a north to south direction. The speed was constant. Its altitude fluctuated by 10 feet perhaps, something like that. And then, as I say, just to finish off, it descended again at the other side of this house. And my father running up here, he could just about make out between the 2 properties there, this UFO coming back down again.
Can you just say what year again it was, please?
It was January 1983. 1983. So it's a long time ago.
It's 22 years ago.
Yeah, and do you know what? In 1983, I remember some friends coming to school and saying that they'd witnessed UFOs.
Well, that's right.
It must have been the same time.
It was. As I know this, as I said, 2 or 3 of my friends actually saw them as well. They were everywhere that particular night. Although I personally didn't see one.
No, I was really jealous.
Yeah,
because
me too. I'm upset about that, but I didn't see one. But as I say, my father's account was something that we've talked about ever since. It really freaked him out. He didn't have well, to this day we don't know what that was. We went through drones, but then well, drones, they don't go at a walking pace. At least I don't think so. They weren't known back in the early 80s. And the thing I kept asking is, why would any military or governmental department want to test something like that over an urban street
Yeah.
in at 6 o'clock on a weekday evening. So it doesn't make sense. Drones, well, if it were a drone, it would have been something that would have been highly top secret at that time. And why the hell would they be testing it over a suburban street?
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense. Plus, of course,
The
it's
exact time was it 6 or was it?
it was round about 6 o'clock.
Because
Yeah, give or take.
many other witnesses have reported 2 big objects going east to west,
Right.
high up, low down,
Yeah.
all about the same time, between sort of 6:30.
Yeah, that would have
Port
been about
Talbot,
right.
Skewing,
Yeah.
all over the place.
If I remember
This is
rightly, my father, his evening lessons were 6:30. They started. He had a couple of lessons in the evening, and I think the first one used to be starting at 6:30. So it would have been around about 6 to 10 past, something along those lines.
And of course, after that, then you had to go to work.
And then he went to work.
He had to put
sure.
out his mind,
Very,
of course.
very shaken up. Very shaken up by it. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, well, thank you for meeting us.
Thank you both.
Thank
very
you,
much.
sir.
Thank you. I hope it's some use to you.
Okay, cheers.
There we are.
Very much so. Thank you.
Brilliant. There we are.
It's amazing how many strange occurrences are turning up that we've come across since we've been doing this.
Oh, you won't believe it. Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah.
The one I've
people coming
studied
forward.
is the Rendlesham Forest incident. That's the one I find the most fascinating. Colonel Holt, Charles Holt, and that crew,
There's
the
a lot-
famous
There's a lot
audio
been
tape.
written about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've read, that's right. Yeah, Nick Pope. He wrote a book about it recently, which I found very interesting. And of course, our interest in this was it was greatly increased having seen this, whatever it was he saw. That's when we really started taking a bit more of an interest in the subject.
It does. That happens a lot. Yeah, people see something and it awakens awakens a fascination with the subject, and they start reading.
Well, as I say, he was a very private guy. He didn't want anyone he wouldn't have particularly appreciated this, to be truthful. Hence, I did promise I wouldn't say any more about it until after he'd gone. But as soon as he did, then I thought, right, well, it's fair enough now, it's time. I honestly believe that this is an important enough sighting that it's, at least to tell people.
Yeah.
What people take from this is entirely up to them, but I know it's true. I know it happened. It did. My father did see this. Whatever it was, he did see it. And it shocked him. It really did. It affected
Well, it is
him.
amazing how many people have seen things and it's gone unreported over the years.
Yeah.
And this has been the purpose of the club, really, because it's brought to light so many incidents.
Oh,
and
gosh,
people
yeah.
have come to the meetings and not afraid when they realise everyone else is in the same position and seen other things themselves. They will come up front and start telling you what they've seen.
Yeah. As I say, I wished I could say I saw it. I wished I could, but I didn't.
Well,
I wasn't.
I'm
the
really
lucky
pleased
one.
that you did put that post up on the website that we spotted, and because otherwise that sighting that your dad had would have been forgotten and not known.
Yeah. Well, the things about it that I found the most interesting was the depth of the craft. It was so shallow, if you will, that he said probably a human being couldn't even lay in it. It was that shallow. That was something that I thought was quite important that we explain, and also the chugging noise. You don't expect to hear sort of a low chugging noise with something
Did you
you assume to be so super high tech.
Did you ask around the neighbours if anybody else saw it?
No, we didn't.
No?
No. Perhaps we ought to have, but my father was, I guess he was the only one out here at the time.
It's such a transient thing.
It's
It's
a busy street. People are in and out all the time. 6 o'clock is a fairly early evening.
just a few seconds across the road, and then it was over the next street. Right?
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah, as I say, it was all over in about maybe 10 seconds, maybe 12 seconds, however. But it didn't last long.
Well, given the busyness of Sketty Road, especially that time of the evening, there's a good chance someone else.
And it was at night, wasn't it? So
Yeah, well, it was dark. As I say, it was because it was middle of January, and so of course 6 p.m. it's pitch dark. This craft was darker than the night sky, so even if it didn't have a light on each corner, he could have seen what it was.
The street lights would have been
purely by the fact that it was a lot darker than the sky around it.
Okay.
There we go.
I think you can always tell the more genuine cases is when they're worried about their self-image and they're worried about what people might think. Because if they were an attention seeker, they would have just blurted it out.
Yeah. Well, again, as I say, I swore, I gave my father my word that I wouldn't go putting it out in the public domain until he passed away, which of course he did in 2012. So soon after he died, I thought, right, it's time. Well, at least anyone with an interest in this subject knew what he'd seen.
Yeah.
It is. I would have thought it's quite important, in as much as that, as I say, the noise it made, the height of the craft, general description is quite accurate, in as much as he would have been about 25, 30 feet from it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, we're very grateful to you. It's not going to make Sky News, but it's certainly down for our purposes anyway. We've got a record of it now, and it's nice to compare these things as well, because there's so many other people seeing the same sort of thing on the same night. It's just interesting. So Emlyn here has been plotting the direction of every single one that's been reported on that night. Wow. So it's interesting to see which directions they've been travelling. Some of them might be the same craft they've seen.
Yeah, some of them probably will.
I think it's more than a coincidence that they were. As I say, my memory may be playing tricks with me, but I can remember my friends and I sitting down talking about them, but of course they were much higher in the sky, the ones my friends had seen, at an altitude of perhaps hundreds of feet, if not more. They just saw a small craft, but of course this one was 25, 30 feet away. So it was a heck of a difference.
Sure. Well, we blame a lot on confabulation, but very often our memory's a lot more accurate than we give them credit for.
Quite possibly, yeah, that's very true too. It's very true too. So, there we are. That's it.
Okay,
Okay, Steve.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much.
Right, there we are.